What's going on YouTube? So affordable vehicles are on the rise again, and Kia has one of the latest additions to the popular compact sedan segment, the K4. And in the short time it's been on sale, it's already jumped to one of the best-selling Kias, and for good reason. So after living with this model for a week, do we think that you should buy this sedan over popular alternatives such as the Corolla and Civic? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Now, like always, let's start off real quick with our spec dump. There's two different engine options you can get with this K4. We have the more powerful option. It's a 1.6-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine making 190 horsepower. That's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and our combined fuel economy is 29 mpg. Now, the base price of the K4 is under $22,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, this, of course, is a real-world review, so we've lived with this model for 7 days. We have a lot to share when it comes to our real-world fuel economy, as well as things like if we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it. But let's go ahead and close up the hood so we can take a look at the stylish exterior of this all-new model before we look at the surprisingly premium interior. Now, just because someone is buying an affordable vehicle doesn't mean they want it to be super bland. And I think Kia really nailed this overall exterior design. We showed this to a lot of people. Everyone seemed to really like this look because it does have that aggressive design and it looks a little bit more premium than some of the things that it competes against. Now, you'll notice that we've got kind of that signature Kia fascia here. It's very narrow with our tiger nose grille up here at the top, a little bit of silver accenting, and then you have a gloss black finish here to our lower fascia. There's a few different trims you can choose from. What we're looking at today is the top spec. This is the GT Line Turbo. Now, that is going to impact the lighting, so let's talk about that. You will get standard LED lights on every single K4. That also includes this very large and distinct amber daytime running light, which is a signature of the Kia brand. However, when you go for the top-end GT Line Turbo, that substitutes out the regular LED headlights for these crystal projector LED headlights. Guys, let me tell you, these headlights are so impressive. We do have an upcoming night review where we'll get into more details about these, but let me just say they're basically luxury car headlights. They're really incredible for the price point this sells at. You even have an integrated fog light unit right up here. And as we take a look at the back, it continues with the wide and sporty appearance just like the front. Yeah, absolutely. And as far as some of the design touches, you will kind of notice they've blacked out this piece to give you a little bit of a longer rear window look. And then as far as the taillights, we have some very premium lighting, that's for sure. So you get a partial LED taillight as standard equipment. And if you choose a turbo model, that's actually going to get you the full LED. So we have our LED brake light, LED turn signal, and then our LED reverse light down here at the bottom. Really, it's pretty much unheard of to have a vehicle in this segment with full LED lighting. And then the lower diffuser is very aggressive as expected. No exposed exhaust on this model though. Now moving on to the wheels, you have different sizes between 16 and 18 inches to choose from. Only the base model doesn't have an alloy. And as you can see on this top GT Line Turbo, we have the special gloss black finish. This is exclusive and one of the only ways that you can really tell the GT Line Turbo from the regular GT line. Now you've got a little bit of gloss black accenting around the wheel arches and the lower part of the body. You'll see that continue up here with our mirrors. And these mirrors come standard with heating and blind spot monitoring on all but the base LX trim. Now at the side, overall vehicle length is 185.4 inches. As a matter of fact, Kia says this is the longest and widest option in the segment. And I want to point out, if you're not a huge fan of the way this kind of piece looks here in the back, you can actually get the hatchback version, and we do have a full video on that already live on the channel. So if you want to learn about the extra practicality you'll get with that model, you can already find that on the channel. Part of our roof is going to be blacked out because we have the sunroof. And then as far as your safety systems are concerned, I'm very happy to tell you that Kia is including all 4 active safety features as standard equipment on all K4s. That will include things like adaptive cruise control. If you want a few extra goodies like Highway Drive Assist, as well as Highway Drive Assist 2.0, you can actually get those on this model. We have the 2.0 system, which even does things like assisted lane change, and we found it to work really well. But guys, let's go ahead and check out the interior because there's a lot to talk about in there. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, let's move to the interior. First, here's our key fob. This is Kia's newest key fob design. You've got your buttons over here on the side for the smart entry system, and we also have a remote start on most trims. Walking up to it, just grab behind the handle. There's a sensor on the door. And then take a look at the interior. Of course, we haven't really gotten into the price tag of this vehicle, but I think you'll be very surprised with how much equipment and how much luxury you get inside of this cabin for the price point. Let's start by talking about the seats though, before we dig into those individual details. As you'd expect, you are going to begin things with a cloth seat on your lower examples. You move to a cloth and leatherette. And then when you get to this top-end GT Line Turbo, that's where you have the full Syntex leatherette. We've got a two-tone finish with these seats. So we have a black in the center and basically a light gray or an off-white that trims around the outside edges. I think these look absolutely fantastic. You can also get black and red if you prefer a little bit of additional color pop. The seats are power adjusting as well with two-way lumbar support. And then the thing that you never see in this class, we have the available technology package that includes memory seats. That's pretty crazy for this vehicle. But let's go ahead and climb on inside. Now, many of the things about this vehicle feel a class above, and one of those things is material quality. Let's dig into that. So over here on the door trim, you have a leatherette that runs all through here. Soft touch plastic along the top. It's going to be soft touch material going through the entire dashboard. We have kind of a brushed aluminum looking trim that runs through the center section. A little bit of gray finish through there, and the multi-tone through the center. No padding along the console. We don't really expect that for the class, but everything in here feels really solid. I think that's the thing that stands out versus some of the competition like the Corolla. Let's fire it up with the push button start. Now let's jump into some individual details of the interior. We'll begin, as always, with the gauge cluster. So you'll always get kind of this dual screen arrangement design. However, if you get the EX trim or above, that's where you get basically all 12.3 inches as being reconfigurable. So you can change the information in the center, and then the other parts of it are customizable, like when you change drive modes, like I just did. Now, this also has the blind spot camera system that's included with our technology package on the fully loaded example. And let's pull back to the steering wheel. We've got a very nice looking steering wheel. You'll get the leather wrapping on the EX trim, and above, since we've got a GT line example, we have the flat bottom and top, and it's got a two-tone look, which is pretty nice. It's manual tilt and telescoping. And then let's take a look next at interior storage. Even though this is a smaller sedan, it's actually pretty large for a compact, and you can see that reflected in our center console. First of all, we at Car Confections use the donut to test out the volume and compare to the competition. We have 8 donuts inside of here, which is, again, quite good for a vehicle in this segment. You have more storage in front of this, which is also your cup holder, so you can kind of just use that as you need. And then up in front of that, we've got a nice center cubby here, which also doubles as a wireless phone charging pad on the EX and above. Moving back, you got a traditional T shifter. Pull back for drive, bump over here to the left if you want to shift manually. We also have paddle shifters as well. And then when we go into reverse, you'll see something you hardly ever see in a compact sedan. That's a 360 camera. That's again part of the tech package on this GT line turbo. Otherwise, you'll just get, this section here, but we've got active trajectory as well. You even still get the 3D view like other more upscale Kia and Hyundai products. You have brake hold and also an electronic parking brake. And then let's move on up here to our climate control region. So we've got a dual zone automatic setup. That's going to be reserved for your upper end examples. The LX trims will come with a little bit of a different setup. That being said, we have physical controls for your temperature to adjust up and down, and you've got your mode setting right here. The additional functions will be located in this dedicated 5-inch screen, which is in between your main screen and your gauge cluster. Now with this screen, you can make those manual adjustments if you want. You can also pop that out to this screen if you want that to be a little bit bigger. Overall, I think this is a good setup because what you most frequently engage with is physically located right there. I just want to mention, as far as a little bit of feedback, the steering wheel kind of blocks your view of this depending on which type of seating position you like. So just be aware you may not be able to have a good view at like what the actual temperature is adjusted to. You'll just know if you're moving it up and down. Now you might have noticed this earlier, but your heated seat controls will be located over here. That's standard on the GT line. And then optional on the GT line turbo is this right here, the ventilated seats. Again, extremely rare for this segment, especially at this price point. Now let's move over to the main section here. We'll take a look now at our audio system. Again, physical controls, which is refreshing to see. As far as what you get, you have a 4-speaker system as standard equipment on the LX trim level. This moves you up to an 8-speaker Harman Kardon sound system on your upper end examples, and let's give it a sample. Again, a really nice, surprisingly sound system here. Just definitely more than what you'd expect for the price point. Really fills up the cabin nicely, and we quite enjoyed listening to it this week. I also almost forgot to mention that this has ambient lighting as well. That's in that top end tech package. We'll be looking at that in the night review. Now, taking a look at our main infotainment screen, this is a 12.3-inch display. Unlike the competition, we don't really mess around with weird small displays. All the models will get this. It comes with the things that you're going to want, including wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. That's what we're in right now. And then I'll cycle back to the main infotainment screen. This is CCNC, so it's their latest and greatest. Performance of this is quite nice. Upper end examples have built-in navigation as well, and we had no issues with this throughout the week. Up top, we've got a manual dimming mirror. You can option on an auto dimming one if you want. And then finally here, if you get a GT line turbo, that will come standard with this sunroof. As you can see, it has a power sunshade and it opens up.
Now let's hop on back here into the K4's rear seat. First and foremost, let's talk about space. I think that's a highlight of this K4. You know, you saw the luxury in the front, but also the space in the back is going to be really, really good. So we're sitting at 38 inches of legroom, 37 inches of headroom. That pretty much means that this is one of the largest options in this entire segment that you can get, that's for sure. Of course, we brought along the official Car Confections ruler. The reason we do that is so we can get a realistic knee room figure. From behind Drew's 5'8" driving position, I am 5'9" for reference. We're sitting at 7.5 inches of knee room, and my feet can slide up underneath of the seat. Also, speaking of these seats, a lot of options in this segment will give you really, hard seats here in the back to kind of cheap out on things. These seats are nice and comfortable back here. I like the two-tone finish as well, and we also have a center armrest with 2 cup holders inside that can easily fit bottles like that. As far as other features that you might expect to find, we have rear vents. That's going to be included on your turbo models, and I'm very happy to tell you that USB-C charging ports are standard on every single version of the K4, and you also have this little storage cubby right there. Over on the door trim, it is going to be hard touch, so they did cheap out a little bit on that. They have to cost cut somewhere. However, most of the center section is actually leatherette, and we have a padded armrest portion. There's also a bit of door storage as well, so you can see it can easily swallow up a pretty big water bottle back there. Now walking up to the trunk area, we do have a button to go ahead and open it up. It's nicely dampened as well. You also have the ability to have the smart opening system as well as you approach the rear. And as far as the cargo space, 14.6 cubic feet is what you can expect out of the K4. That once again is a very large cargo capacity figure for this segment of vehicle. It's actually only about 1 cubic foot less space than the bigger brother Kia K5. So this is a really big option. And if you're curious as to how it may stack up in other areas other than space against the affordable sedans it competes with, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. We've gone through all of the options in this affordable sedan space and ranked them in individual categories like cargo space, rear seat features, luxury features in the front, powertrain experience, and of course, very importantly, value that you're going to get. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, be sure to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings and check that out. Now, the seats do fold 60-40 split, and it's a Car Confections review, so let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. In case you were looking to haul something specifically, we're sitting at about 43 inches of cargo length with the seats upright. Opening is 40 inches wide, and then the height is coming in at 21 inches tall. That's pretty good. And then cargo load-in height is 28 inches. Of course, I do want to mention once more that you have the K4 hatchback coming out that is going to be quite a bit more practical than this, so if you need extra space, definitely check that model out. And then underneath of the floor, we also have a spare tire. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Kia K4. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting things like our sound level reading, as well as discussing things like the real-world fuel economy. But first, we need to start with that hard acceleration.
All right, that was 60 miles an hour. So like we mentioned at the very beginning on the spec dump, we have the GT Line Turbo. So there's two powertrain options. This is the only trim level that, of course, has the turbo engine. That's why it's in the name. And this really gives you a nice bump in terms of power. It's for somebody who wants that kind of extra level of performance out of the product. Not hardcore performance, but just a nice bump up. So this is a 1.6-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, has 190 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. Those are quite good for this segment. Certainly a smaller vehicle. This is going to get you up to speed quite nicely.
Yeah, I think particularly the torque stands out to me. 195 pound-feet is pretty good for this vehicle. It was actually enough to get a little bit of tire chirp as we accelerated there. So really a far cry from, things like a Toyota Corolla or whatever that's just going to be painfully slow. This is a lot better, that's for sure. Now, a lot of you guys will select just the standard engine, and that is a totally fine setup. We've driven that in other Kia K4s in the past, so if you want to check out our reviews on the channel, we have done K4s with the base powertrain. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It makes 147 horsepower, 132 pound-feet of torque. I actually owned a vehicle. My very first car was a 2018 Elantra with that exact same engine setup. It's perfectly adequate for this segment. It's not going to knock your socks off or anything, but you'll be more than satisfied with it.
It's kind of fun to, just floor this thing. Now, as you can tell, it has a front-wheel drive vehicle. It's front-wheel drive standard on all the versions of this, even the GT Line Turbo. And another big reason why you might want to choose the GT Line Turbo, besides the extra power, is that this comes with a conventional 8-speed automatic transmission. The other version, the other powertrain, comes with a continuously variable transmission. There's nothing wrong with that transmission. Again, like we said, we have sampled it. It is plenty responsive, but this is going to give you that more traditional feel. You also can use the paddle shifters, which are pretty good as well. And it's just going to kind of give you, again, more of a performance edge and a little bit more fun in your day-to-day life.
But we have, finally settled down, and we're just cruising down the highway here, and let's talk about ride quality. So living with a vehicle, you put several hundred miles on it, and you drive over all types of road surfaces. I have to say, the ride quality, pretty good on this model. A vehicle in this segment is not going to be like the most sublime ride at all by any stretch of the imagination. This car has a little bit of a sporty edge to it. That being said, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how well they've kind of mixed the sporty edge as well as good ride quality when you're just kind of cruising down the road. When you hit big bumps in the road, there's a little bit of intrusion, but not bad whatsoever. I think this is very good for the segment, actually. As a matter of fact, it's definitely at the top end.
Yeah, it's just got a very solid feel as well. Like we said, it kind of has a class above feel in many ways, and I think that solidity when you go over bumps and stuff is one of those elements.
All right, let's get our sound level reading. We have it on fan speed 1, and our vented seats are off, so let's see how quiet this K4 is. Wow. 54.3 decibels. That is pretty phenomenal, guys, as a sound level reading in the Kia K4. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to all the other affordable sedans that we test on the channel. You can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. And indeed, that places it as the quietest option that we have tested out in the segment. I'm not exactly surprised by that because the EX trim level also tested very quiet. However, this GT line is a step above the EX trim level, which I'm also not surprised by because in this segment, a lot of times the lower trim levels will have louder cabins than the higher trim level. So when you opt for this fully loaded example, I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised with how quiet it is in here, and we experienced that throughout this week. And I want to also talk about fuel economy for the K4. I'll give you your EPA numbers before I get into our real-world experienced fuel economy. We're sitting at 34 mpg for the LX model. All the other trim levels are rated at 33 mpg. And then if you choose the turbo version, so this one today, that is rated at 29 mpg combined. Now, what did we experience? Well, we drove this K4 for 266 miles this week. We actually took it to a media drive and back and then drove it around the rest of the week. And we sat at 35.9 mpg. Now, it's worth noting that was a mix of both highway and city driving because we did drive on the highway for about probably 60% of that driving, and then the other 40% was in the city, and still sitting at nearly 36 mpg. So that is well above the combined rating of 29 mpg for this model. And on the highway, we are experiencing into the 40s. So it's like 41, 42.
Yeah. Over 40 miles per gallon, and that's driving on the interstate, like 75-ish miles an hour. So pretty impressive stuff. It definitely seems that you don't lose out a lot on fuel economy by going for this more powerful powertrain. So that's something that kind of makes a case for you to upgrade to this if you like that extra power. And as we go around that corner there, let's talk a little bit about the performance of this model. The GT Line Turbo, it doesn't line up with the very top tier of performance, just in case you're confused about that. So it's not really an Elantra in competitor. This is kind of like an in line or something in the middle. That being said, again, it's really focused on that everyday livability with the extra sporty edge. So you'll notice when you go into sport mode, you have good throttle response. The steering, even in the normal mode, really is good. So when you go off center, you get that immediate feedback from the steering wheel. It has decent feel as well. Good brakes.
And let's get into our slam dunk and airball, our favorite and least favorite element. Drew, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the slam dunk?
It's definitely got to be the value of this product. When it comes to affordable offerings in the compact segment, this is coming in on even the low end against all the competition, but is packing in more equipment than you certainly expect. And I think that it's really important that it goes for all the trim levels as well. So especially if you're looking at like mid-level EX, you really get a lot of stuff for a super affordable price, or you can move up to something like this where you get a ton of unexpected stuff and still a good price.
Yeah. On the airball side, we have a couple little things that we just want to go ahead and hit. We wish they would offer a hybrid on the K4. There's an Elantra hybrid. Not sure why there's not a K4 hybrid. That would probably benefit this model to have that option now that the Civic has that. Also, we wish they'd add all-wheel drive. And then just a little bit of a note, these are kind of, nitpicky things, but the rear door, we found that as we were using that this week, when you pull it open, it kind of hits your leg every single time because it juts out a little bit farther than you might expect just because of the kind of weird door design in the back. And do we like the K4 better, the same, or worse after living with it this week? Well, I'll go ahead and kick us off here and say I definitely liked it better. I actually did not have the chance to go with Drew on the media drive for this vehicle, so I had not been in the fully loaded GT line turbo trim level. And yes, I was expecting to have a lot of features. This vehicle comes very nicely equipped, but after living with it, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as nice as it is, and solid and cohesive, and it drives nice in addition to all those things. So I think that this is a truly legitimate Civic competitor, and if you haven't had the chance to drive both of them back to back, I definitely recommend you do that before just defaulting to the Civic.
Yeah, right. And we, for reference, own a Toyota Camry, and that's a class above. And we have the XSE, which is very much loaded up. And there was many times where I'm thinking this week, honestly, this has better features and kind of feels just about the same as a midsize sedan.
Now it's time for pricing. So as I said at the very beginning of this video, this vehicle starts at under $22,000. Kia was happy to point out that's one of, I believe, only 8 vehicles in the US that are sold for under $22,000. So this is one of the most affordable models in the entire US. Now we, of course, have the fully loaded example, even with the option package. $2,200 for that option package, plus $1,155 at destination. With every single option, we are sitting at $31,445 fully loaded up, which significantly undercuts its competition like the Honda Civic fully loaded up, that's for sure. If you're curious as to where it is built in Mexico, so that is something to keep in mind. And if you're looking to buy a Kia K4 or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that in our video description, as well as a pinned comment down below. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's dive into resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Kia K4's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 49.02% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 21.1%. It's worth noting those are right at the industry average for all vehicle makes when it comes to resale value percentages. However, it is going to be less than its main rivals, which would be the Honda Civic and Toyota Corolla. Those have pretty much the highest resale value percentage of any brands.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several trustworthy sources on reliability and combines them in a way that gives you the most holistic picture. In this regard, Kia is rated above the overall industry average for all vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you do have a really good one, a 5-year, 60,000-mile basic warranty and a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. You do not get complimentary maintenance, however. And guys, that's going to wrap up our in-depth 7-day review of the all-new 2025 Kia K4. If you enjoyed hearing about our impressions after living with this model for a week, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to help us to get more cars like this down here for us to live with for a full week and give you those real-world impressions. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support because you make this all possible. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.